This is all about vacuum excavation. We specialise in vacuum excavation as a company. We're called Vac-Ex. We're based up in Doncaster, but we travel all over the country.
Exactly, yeah. And on that note, thank you very much. We'll see you later.
Okay, some of you will be familiar with vacuum already, but it's the safest way to excavate around buried cables and pipes. It's really using something to break the ground up, which is generally an air lance. Once the ground's broken up, you can then vacuum it away, and as far as we know, it is the safest method to excavate, as opposed to the traditional methods of hand digging and using a machine. Birmingham University did a study some years ago on the amount of service strikes and what service strikes cost. It's quite a weighty document, but basically the interesting bit sums up into this slide. Now, they estimated around about 1.5 million holes are dug in the UK every year. Around about 60,000 of them will end up in a strike. That's per year. Now, the cost to put things right, repair the damage, is relatively low. On average, they say around £4,000 per strike to do the repair. But what people don't take into consideration is the other costs that are associated with that, and that's the downtime, loss of reputation, drug and alcohol testing to the operators, meetings, insurance claims, compensations, and it goes on and on. And they calculated that on average per strike, you're looking around about £100,000 in sort of backroom and what they call indirect costs. So a service strike can be very expensive. That's costing the industry around about 6 billion every year. These are the sort of things we're trying to avoid and what can happen using traditional methods of digging. Thankfully, this doesn't happen very often to this degree, but these are the extremes. This was a dig in Wednesbury. It was, I think it was Western Power. I had a subcontractor dig a hole, and unfortunately he's hit a water pipe. The compensation for that alone was around about £1 million. I have met the guy that hired them, that mini digger, and it wrote that off. Little video for you. This one was in London. It looks like it might have been a Murphy's job, judging by the van down the road, but and then, of course, apart from inconvenience and embarrassment, you've got the chance of physical injury and even to fatality. One on the left, obviously nasty burn, but relatively minor. The one on the right, it was overseas and he didn't have flame-proof overalls on, but he demonstrates the heat he's been subjected to after he's hit a high voltage cable. So the benefits of using, I'm going to focus on compact vacuum excavation because that's what we do, but any vacuum excavation, you can excavate around existing surfaces and tree roots without damage or the minimal risk of damage. On average, using vacuums 4 times quicker than hand digging. Now that depends on the ground type. Some grounds are quicker to vacuum than others, but that's a figure that came back from one of our biggest customers. They bought 29 of our units and they did a study on productivity. And they said across different ground types, they found in general it was 4 times quicker than hand digging. There's a reduction in stress on an operator as opposed to hand digging, so a reduction in stress and fatigue. Cheaper than traditional method of hand digging. In most vacuum units, you can store the debris in the machine. You can track them down the road a little bit and tip them, so you don't have to put the spoil that you're pulling out alongside the hole where it might be inconvenient. Reduces the amount of time men have to be in the excavation. There's very little problem with halves with any vacuum equipment. Our equipment's all been tested and we don't have enough of a halves reading to limit use. And also allows for smaller excavation. We have customers who use our equipment for installing fence posts and lighting columns, and they'll literally just dig a 6-inch diameter hole. It reduces your reinstatement costs. The preferred method of breaking up the ground prior to vacuuming is using an air lance. It's relatively clean. Basically, the air goes into the ground. As it goes into the ground, it expands and breaks up the ground, fluidizes it, so it's easily vacuumed away. That's why vacuum excavation works best. Vacuum and air works best with permeable grounds, sandy soils, loamy soils, gravels, that sort of thing. Clay's a difficult one, but we'll discuss that in a bit. We find that the air lance doesn't damage existing surfaces. The air just scoots around them, and this next video will give you some sort of an idea of how gentle you can be with an air lance. Crude, I know, but it just gives you an idea of obviously how the difference in methods of digging. On the picture on the right, the air lance is being used. It's breaking the ground up nicely, ready to be vacuumed away. Clay is the most difficult ground, and on the picture on the left, he's using a water jet to effectively cut the clay. Now that does work very well. Water jetting is a good method for breaking up clay, and most vacuum units will then pull that up no problem. We recommend using a water lance with an oscillating tip, so you can't pinpoint water pressure onto the surface, and also restricting the pressure to 2,500 psi. The issue you have after you've removed the slurry, the slop, is you're finding somewhere to tip it. Certain sites obviously be suitable for it, but it's not easy to find somewhere to tip it when you're working on the street. We have had some customers use this method and they've tipped into permeable dumpy bags, which holds most of the solids and allows the water to drain out. Others have built like a bonded area. So there is ways around it, and in clay ground, it does work very well. You may have seen these around. We used to have a vacuum truck hire part of our company, which we've now sold off, but the trucks are still running around. Great bits of kit, very powerful. If you've got enough digging to do and plenty of room to get the truck in, highly recommend it. They should break the ground up with an air lance or a water jet and vacuum it away. Unfortunately, it depends on the operator. Some of them will be lazy and they basically use the power of the hydraulic arm to break the ground, which you may as well go in with a traditional excavator, because the force from the hydraulic arm is quite a bit and it can damage surfaces. And unfortunately, they do get service strikes. We manufacture the compact units. The smallest unit we do is the air vac, as you can see here. It goes on a trailer. It's just over 1 metre wide. It's only got a small capacity. It'll hold a couple of wheelbarrow fulls. But for digs in small digs in tight access areas, it's a nice bit of kit. 2.5 tons, including the trailer. Two-man operation, one with operating the air lance and a colleague using the vacuum to remove whatever is broken up. This unit doesn't have a compressor. You'll need a compressor to supply the air lance, and operators generally use a compressor mounted on the van, or they'll have a mobile compressor on site, which you can tow around with the air vac. The air vac has the facility of a high tip, so you can lift the skip prior to tipping. You can tip at any height. So it makes it suitable then for tipping into dumpy bags, trailers, or it'll even tip into a standard builder's skip. These are excavations that we've done with the air vac. The one on the left, that was a water job in north of London. That one is other end of the country. That's up in Aviemore. It was very tight to get a machine in there, but we could get the air vac in, and it's digging away there. Here's Urban Jungle Warfare Division. They've got quite a few of our machines around the country, and these were in Devon for South West Water. You can see where they're digging. It's not obviously suitable to get a truck in there. This is local to us, Doncaster Council, installing lighting columns. They really see the benefits of these machines. It's eliminated their service strikes, it's increased productivity, it's reduced reinstatements. The speed obviously depends on the ground, but once they get the hole dug, they just drop the column in. There's a little video here showing you the air vac in action. That was the air vac. Sorry, I forgot to mention earlier, if there's any questions, please put them in the chat and I'll answer them later. Or I don't mind, not a problem with you just unmuting at the end and just firing your questions at me. The larger compact unit we manufacture is the TVAC 2. It's got a 1 meter cube skip. so it's 5 times the capacity of the air vac. It tips, but it doesn't lift and tip. It'll just dig quicker. So if you were digging a hole with the air vac and it took you half an hour, that same hole would take you about 15-20 minutes with a T-vac. That's the tipping facility. We have various customers who have bought these. We've got a guy customer in the Birmingham area. He wanted his paint in pink, so we did that, no problem. And he uses it for, he's got a truck and one of our T-vac units that he uses for excavating city centres around the sort of Midlands area. That was a demonstration we were doing for Cadent Gas using the T-vac. That was the hole we excavated for them. Cadent run the trucks as well. They have their own fleet of trucks, but they're looking for something more economical to mobilise. Trucks cost a lot of money to run around town centres. So the OE machines obviously moved on a trailer. It's a cheaper option to mobilise, and they also want something more compact to get into areas where a truck would cause too much of an obstruction. This was for a job for Wessex Water, and we've managed to get the T-vac up on the footpath, quite a wide footpath, so we're not taking up any room in the carriageway. They were doing lead renewals, so this was all they wanted to do, was expose the main and the lead. There's a little video of the T-vac. That was the T-Vac, or what we call our T-Vac 2. We hire and sell this equipment, and we'll provide training to anyone that buys or hires. Training can be done at our facility. We're based up in Doncaster, or we'll come to your site or yard or whatever and deliver the training. The operators are trained on the air lance, safe use of the air lance, and then safe use of whichever vacuum machine they use in the air-vac or the T-Vac. It's manufacturer's training as standard, which normally takes between sort of 5 and 7 hours, depending on operators. And we like to keep the group sizes down to 6. So we'll train a maximum of 6 operators at any one time. If you want NPAWs, we can deliver NPAWs. It just complicates things a little bit. It just makes it's not just a day's training, then it's done over 2 or 3 days, depending on the number of operators. We'd like to do the NPAWs training at our place because we're more geared up to do it, but we can, if you have the right facilities, we can do it at a customer's venue. And that's it for the presentation. Quicker than I thought. These are the sort of people we work with on a regular basis. Please unmute and fire any questions at me, but I think there's something in the chat room. The maximum depth. Somebody's asked a question about the maximum reach or depth the machine will vacuum. To be honest, it's pardon the pun, it's a little bit suck it and see. Or it literally is suck it and see. It depends on what you're pulling up. It's quite a light, dry material. You probably get about 15 meters of hose, and it'll pull it up the hose, no problem. But the more hose you have on, the more vacuum you lose. We have seen applications where customers have dug down to pull muck up 6 meters. I think one even went to 8 meters. But I would say in general, sort of on average type ground, you're looking at sort of 3 meter depth maximum. Somebody's mentioned about residual hazards, and I'm sorry, but I'm not sure what they mean by that. What are they? What if any are its residual hazards? You want to unmute and let me know. Nice to see filters accessible. Yeah. Yeah, somebody's mentioned that the filter chambers for cleaning out the filters are accessible, which they are. Obviously, that has to be done quickly. We recommend that the end of every day, end of every shift, that you just lift the access chambers to the filters and use a compressor with a small tool that we supply called a filter blaster to back blast the filters, knock any muck out of them, and they can be tipped out. Once a week, once every 2 weeks, we'd also recommend taking the filters out and power washing them off. Just 6 bolts, undo the bolts, pull the filters out, stand them up on the end of a scaffold pole or something like that, and you can power wash them and let them dry and put them back in. Any more questions?
Oh yeah, I did put my hand up. Stuart from
Sorry,
South.
sorry,
Yes, it's all right. Stuart from Southeast Water. It was my question about the residual hazards. What I meant there is obviously this is designed to cut out a lot of the risk associated with excavations, but what's left with the machine, you know, what have you got to be careful with it in terms of, I suppose it's quite, you know, it's quite a powerful machine.
Yeah, there's no problems with halves. All our equipment's tested and we don't have any issues with halves. I suppose the health and safety factors with the machine, obviously driving it, make sure you don't hit anyone, catch anything, and that's all covered in the training. The vacuum power itself, although it's a powerful vacuum, you can stick your hand up the pipe, it might take your glove off, but it wouldn't damage you at all. And it's all manually handled rather than being handled by or manipulated by a hydraulic arm. So that helps with the safety of it. I would say that your residual hazards are no more, probably less actually, than you'd find working around a mini digger.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody's asked, do you sell to contracts for projects? Yes, we do. Do we sell outside the UK? Bill's asked me this. Yes, we do, Bill. We have a division that looks after exports. We have machines over in Australia, Singapore, France, Germany, Holland. So yeah, no problem. Anyone else? Don't be afraid to shout up. Anyone that wants any information sending to them on email, or they want to give me a ring, please feel free. Obviously, my details are on there. Ring or email, and I can send you some sort of basic information on both machines, which will include costs, hire costs, rough purchase costs. So just fire them over, and I'll get back to you straight away.
Simon, Sean Hopkins from Mace. With regards to training, how long does it normally take? I'm guessing it doesn't look that complicated, but doesn't mean there's not a lot of training given. So, yeah,
it isn't complicated. They're very simple bits of kit to use, but obviously the training around it does drill into the health and safety side. So with an air vac, you're probably looking about 4 or 5 hours.
Okay, so it's a day.
To train 6 operators, longer with a T-vac, probably about 7 hours for a T-vac. So yeah, you're looking at a day really.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Once they're trained on a machine, so say they're trained on the air vac, and later down the line they decide that you want to change and use a T-vac, we don't go through all the training again. We'll just familiarise them with the T-vac, which will take an hour or something like that.
Yeah. Do you have any like recommended if they use it, how a time period for refreshers or anything, or is it train once and that's it? They don't have to come back.
We recommend 3 years.
Okay.
They have a refresher after 3 years.
Right, great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you all for attending. Really appreciate it, and I hope you found it interesting. As I say, give me a shout if you want to know more. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you, Simon.
No problem. Bye.